Okay, so for this video, we will discuss on the findings of Mendel, and we will look into the the color of the flower of the pea plants, and then we'll see what he concluded. Okay, so what he's noticed that in the parental generation, when he crossed them, and he'll create all of these guys, right? And these guys, you notice there's no white ones, no white flower pea plants, and yet if you cross these together, you'll create there is one white flower pea plant. And he wondered, well, how is that possible? Why is there such thing? Shouldn't they be all purple? Then he had this idea that the trait are hidden within these plants. Now basically this is the law of segregation, and I'll explain this a little more in detail after I write it down. Law of segregation. Okay, the law of segregation states that each organism, okay, for each characteristic, in this case the flower color, for each characteristic, an organism carries two traits from each parent. Okay, so the same thing could be said the other way around. An organism will give one of their traits to the offspring. Now, if we're going to go in detail to the next board because it's a little hard to visualize. So give me a second. I'm going to remove this part here. Create a new layer. Okay, so let's use blue because I like blue. So before going to, I want to go back to the idea what allele is. An allele. Okay. An allele is basically a variation of a gene. And we'll talk about genes in depth later on, but for now, allele is a specific trait. Okay? And then we know that this guy is purple, right? So purple is a big P. Okay? And this guy's not being purple, is white. And we'll do yes or no. Okay? Well, let's not confuse things. Instead of saying white, we say not purple. And for not being purple, we'll do a lowercase p. Okay? Smaller p. And we know that before I said the law of segregation has two traits. So for it to be purple, it must be 2 times bigger. Right? 2 capital P, this one 2 lowercase p. And don't forget that these are purebred. So we for sure know that it has to be completely the same thing. And if we cross them, they must pass one gene to the offspring. So one allele must be passed. Okay, one of the alleles. So this guy will have the capital P and the lowercase p. Okay? Now, since they only have one result, one product, because we know for sure that big P times small p will always have the bigger one and smaller one. Okay, now this is what it becomes a little interesting. Okay, this part when you have the big one, the small one times the big one, small one. So there's actually four different outcomes. Okay, for one side you have for sure the bigger P. You know, if I cross this big P with this big P, they'd be like this. If I take this big P with a smaller P, the result would be big, small. Now if I look into the small p and big P, it'd be like this. Okay, alright? And then you have the small p with the small p would be like this. Okay? So you notice that in this trait here, there is a dominant factor. We'll call it dominant alleles. Sorry. And there's another allele that's not expressed because the one's dominant. The other one we'll call the recessive. Okay? So this is what basically the law of segregation states. Okay? In the next video, we'll talk about the more of terminology and what's going on in depth. Alright? So see you next time.